Thanks, everybody. Make life simple. Let love lead. Hi, Les. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, yeah. Well, thanks, everybody, and that was great. That was great. Do you need a sip of water?
I do, thank you. Let's see what I can do on my own.
All right. I'll be glad to help, although I don't look nearly as good as Daniela does doing it. Welcome, everybody who's tuning in on the World Wide Web to our video podcast here at McCurdy's Comedy Theater with our headline comedian, Brett Leake, and our audience who's been here for the entire show, and everyone here. You know, the first time we did this, and I believe, as far as I know, this is the only interview podcast with comedians done in the club in front of the audience that just saw a show. I don't think anybody's still doing that. And you were the first.
Oh, well, wonderful. I'm a groundbreaker.
You're the first, because I wanted to make sure and get that. And since then, we've done about 30 of them, and they've all been really interesting. And I want to let one of you guys know that one of the reasons behind doing this for me was that you almost never see comedians interviewed seriously. It's always what we call bit-driven, and that is, as an interviewer, I am leading the comic into a story or a bit that is already predetermined, and so you never hear them just talk about their own lives. And the other thing is that so many people, when they talk to me in the audience after shows, you never hear what comedians are like off stage. Very seldom what they are really like. And I think there's just a feeling among most people that we're all kind of the same. We're all just born nuts. That we've got this crazy, wacky gene that we just have, and that we don't come from all different walks of life, and that's kind of a thing I want to enlighten and dispel. And now you grew up in Virginia. You talk about that, and we kind of know your background from most of your show, but I'm interested in something that we didn't talk about last time. Is that I meet so many people, and you hit on this anyway, but you meet so many people, and you guys know too. You meet so many people in your life that don't have the physical limitations that Brett has, and get up every day and bitch and moan. Bitch and moan. Man, can't get anything done. Can't get a job. Nothing's working out for me. You know what I mean? Can't get... When you wake up in the morning, when you wake up, from that moment until you are ready to hit the day, okay, how long does that take?
For me, it's about, it's now an hour 45.
So almost 2 hours.
If I'm by myself.
Okay.
Now, that's a slowly changing thing, because what I have is called muscular dystrophy, and it's a slowly progressive disease. When I first met Les, I was a walker. When I was on The Tonight Show, I was a walker. When I came here beginning in 2001, I was in a scooter. And in 2007, I reached the point where I could no longer stand on my own power. And that's when I got this chair. And along the same lines, the parallel lines, life has gotten slower in the backstage area. This is very public. You know, going to a scooter and then going to a wheelchair. At home, it's slower. I went from a typical twin bed to now I've got a hospital bed. I have a winch over another bed so that if I had trouble, I would be able to raise myself up out of the bed using a toggle switch and an engine. And there's no chance of that changing. In my family's case, I'm one of 10 who have this. My grandmother had it, my uncles, my dad, my brother, cousins. So I know what it's going to look like. And so when you mention the part about people complaining about it, I've been reading a lot of putts for a long, long time. And I know what it's going to look like. And I've seen what they've been able to do with their lives. And I've seen that if I simply apply myself in the same way to my job, which is to try to make people laugh, I've still got enough time to do that.
But and the thing that's inspiring for me, and when I first met you, we worked together the first time, and then I called to rebook you. And I'll never forget this. On the phone, I'm going, first thing, natural thing, "Hey, Brett, how you doing?" Yeah. And Brett goes, "You want me to answer that honestly?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "The answer to that, if you're asking how I'm doing physically, will be always worse than the last time you talked to me. But if you want to ask me how my day's going, it's going pretty damn good." But that all aside, you know, thousands and thousands of comedians are out there, thousands, that have been, that their dream is to reach the pinnacle that man's reached, and they have everything going for them and can't get there. You know what I mean? So it doesn't.
Well, my question to the audience tonight, here and watching at home, is how often is it the case in your life that when you've decided to pick one talent that you have and you really focused your energy on it, that you really got better at it? What did George Carlin used to say? I remember seeing him say this on The View. He says, life is three things: identifying something, one of the things you're good at, working hard at it, and every once in a while, somebody saying, "Nice job." Somebody who's worthy of judging it, saying, "That's a good piece of work." Now, in my case, working comedy clubs, I'm always working with people who are worthy of giving me the feedback, and an audience who's plunked down money worthy to give me feedback. I listen, I watch tapes, and it's amazing. If you move an idea around, it becomes funnier. So much of humor is simply the way we structure our world.
Absolutely. And now, speaking of that, the one thing that I like to do with this interview is let people know what guys like you are like off stage. So, I know you enjoy bird watching. You've been doing that.
I like it.
He does. Bird watching and bird listening, as you said. Bird listening. But do you have other hobbies?
Yeah.
I mean, when you
as boring as bird watching is to some people, I can do you boring more than that. I like geology. Wow, it got quiet.
Yeah.
I told you I could do it. This is odd. I got to work for years with other comedians. As we got better, that's not for me, is it?
Did you want a beer?
Is that a sample that we need to test?
I wish I had this much foam anymore.
Good line.
Thanks.
That's beautiful. So I just an example. Danielle and I drove across the country a year and a half ago. And part of the idea was, let's have geology maps for the entire drive. I know, that I just put a lot of people to sleep, didn't I? Now, here's why that was fascinating to me, because comedians are unbelievably interesting people. And for years, I had cars where some of my comedian buddies did not. So I was the driver. So I would drive with Jim Hanna, a great comedian. I would later on drive with Jeff Caldwell 3 times on the Letterman Show. They all moved up. They became writers for Dennis Miller. They became headliners on their own right, and it left the passenger seat empty. How do you follow up a 9-hour drive with an interesting human being? Well, the American landscape is unbelievably interesting. No wonder the pioneers had energy to keep going. It's a fascinatingly beautiful place, and it just keeps giving back more energy than it takes. And geology, to me, is the science of scenery. I better understand the way our country tells a fascinating story about how all this came together. So I love that. And Danielle and I did some birding and some rocking all the way across the country to work the fantastic Hermosa Beach Comedy Magic Club, at the end of which Jay Leno was waiting for us. So that's how it all works out.
Nice. Nice, and that's so much. I think that whenever I'm talking with you, I realize my own self how much I take for granted and don't really pay attention to the many things that you do pay attention to. And going in another direction, you and I talked about nature versus nurture, because we talk about a reoccurring theme when I've talked to comics, and it's a theme that's out there, that all comedians are somehow damaged goods. That something happened in their life that so damaged them that we had to become funny as some kind of defense mechanism. And I know I told Brian Bradley, who was here, who had a damaging story. And I told him, I said, but I am not damaged. And he goes, but you're not funny. And but, I mean, what's your spin on that?
Well, here's the thing, and I'll put it very quickly, and then if you want me to expand on it, I will. If you were to Google that phrase, "Are comedians born funny?" Go home and Google it tonight. You're going to come across a comedian who includes that in his bio. His name is Glenn Hirsch. You would know the name Glenn Hirsch if you read Jerry Seinfeld's book, because Glenn Hirsch was the funny man on campus that Jerry Seinfeld aspired to be. So Glenn Hirsch in his bio says, comedians are born funny. The first comedian I ever saw live in a comedy club was Glenn Hirsch. Didn't know him from Adam. Loved it. I had never been in a club before. This was mysterious. I couldn't believe how transporting it was. He was on stage for about an hour. I laughed myself silly. Here's the magic. That there is no magic when it comes to nature versus nurture. I went back to see Glenn Hirsch later that week because I couldn't wait to see what that show would be like. Glenn Hirsch said a lot of the same things the second night that he said the first night, just like if you came back to see me. That was, the mystery was gone, and I felt so much better. Because now I knew this could be learned. People, in my opinion, weren't born funny. They were born with the ability to become funnier. And I saw what it did for him, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if it did it for me? And I learned that you could learn comedy watching a guy who thinks that comedians are born.
That's exactly right. And I tell people that all the time. Everyone comes to me, I'm not funny. I could never do that. Of course you could. Yeah. Of course you could. Everybody's funny. Everybody's made someone laugh, and it's just a matter of working on it. Yeah. And every good comedian I've ever met in my life works hard at it. And every great comedian I have ever met in my life is a type A personality, and they work diligently at what they do. It's not just something that just
it's just if you talk to someone as good as Brian Regan, Brian's a great comedian. You ask him, it's the slow accumulation of gathering little bits of information. Today, I was out on Longboat Key birding. I don't know the geology of Longboat Key.
Sand.
But there we are, and I see the little scat sign. And if you're just tuning in, that's the local Transportation Authority. And I thought, wouldn't that be funny if that was one of the things around this area that didn't make sense? And so I tried it, along with 2 or 3 other things tonight. That's the slow accumulation. That's how one learns to make the funny part of us. There's a little piece of our DNA, in my opinion, that can be funny. But we've got to nurture that little piece of nature. I say it's more nurture than nature.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's the reason you take my comedy class that's coming up next week.
Beautiful. Nice.
Thank you.
You're a
marketer. Best commercial I could put together. Any questions in the audience? Any questions for Brett? If anybody has a question, anything at all, we'll take a couple of minutes for that. Anything? No?
We're not taking questions from Daniela's table.
No, they know you too well. Ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up, I happen to know it's Brett's birthday today.
53. How about that? Yay.
Along with these fine people that are tomorrow.
Thumbs up to you.
How old are you?
I am, as the joke goes, I'm 53 years old. This is the oldest I've ever been. It's impossible to act your age. You have no experience.
And your father lived to be
82.
82 years old with the same thing that you have, with the same mountain. Yeah. That is, and that's something I don't think people think. And Pam McCurdy is here.
Happy birthday to you.
Come on, say yes to it. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Brett. Happy birthday to you.
Yeah.
Thank you. What a party.
All right.
I'm so glad you didn't.
One, two, three. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very
All
nice.
right.
Thank you, Pam.
That's actually cardboard.
The movie Knuckleball is now available on iTunes.
Oh yeah, the Knuckleball is the documentary film on Brett. The filmmaker Ken Sons is in the back because he drinks free here. And hey, I know. And it's a great. If you want to know more about Brett, it's a wonderful piece, and it's available on iTunes now. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it's available on iTunes. So go check it out. And